Phoenix, Arizona.
Hi, everybody. My name's Sharmyn, grateful heroin addict. Hi. Well, that was, yeah. So you're on. Very grateful to be here today. Paul, thank you for asking me to come speak at your 3-year anniversary. This is just, you guys, this is just fucking cool. Like, okay, so I got into Heroin Anonymous in 2007, and it was about 3 years old. I think it had been around for about 3 years in Phoenix, Arizona. And I think there was about 6 meetings total, and there was about 12 active members of Heroin Anonymous, and we all went everywhere together all the time. Like, we were so fiercely codependent on each other because, like, none of us could stay sober until we found Heroin Anonymous, you know, and we knew that we found something really, really special. We knew that there was something so special about this place that we ended up with, these people that we ended up with, right? And so we just held on to each other for dear life, but we were such egomaniacs and so delusional, and our heads were just starting to come out of our ass, you know? So it's just like, we would like have these meetings, right? And we had this big book study, and it was the most amazing big book study. It was called Hit or Miss. And this is what I love about heroin addicts, you guys. Like, we're so dramatic. We have the most fucked up meeting names, right? I was in Colorado, and I went to a meeting called Dark Side of the Spoon, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. That is so amazing, right? And then I came back, and I'm like, we're starting a meeting called the Dark Side of the Spoon, and that's it. You know? It was just so cool, right? Like Hit or Miss, the blue line, you know, just like, right? I mean, in honor, right, of escaping that darkness that we lived in. Like, you know, I was sharing an experience with somebody before the meeting about the first time that I heard my sponsor speak, right? And I don't know about you guys, right? But when I got here, I was kind of appalled about the things that you talked about, right? I'm like, you don't talk about that shit where I come from. Do you know what I mean? Like, snitches get stitches, right? Like, you know, because I lived on the streets for a little bit, and there's just like certain shit you didn't talk about, and there are things that you didn't did, and your eyes didn't go certain places. Do you know what I mean? And it was just like, if it's not like right here, it's not your business, and stay out of it. And people would talk about things, and I'd be like, did you hear that? Did you hear what they're talking about? Like, what the fuck, you know? And I just, like, I mean, there really aren't words for the sense of safety that I felt the first time I ended up in a room with you guys. And the first time I heard my sponsor share her story, she shared about being a prostitute on the streets in Houston. And she laughed about it. You know what I mean? I'm like, bitch is crazy. Why is she laughing about that? That's not a laughing matter, you know? And now when I talk about my story, I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? And I find myself laughing at things that I used to be so ashamed of and I wouldn't talk about. You know, and I heard somebody share in a meeting once, she's my grand sponsor. She's like, I mean, she is the happiest place on earth. In fact, Disneyland's got nothing on her. Like, she walks into a room, she floats, and she smiles, and she's just intoxicating. And she said, God took my shame and gave me the 12 steps, right, and turned it into humility. And Brian, thank you for your share. I was looking at Brian, I'm like, he's young, he's got a Wu-Tang hoodie on, he's got badass shoes. And then he said humble as fuck, and I'm like, I gotta bring it. You know? Like, oh, so thank you for setting the bar high. So, but you know, like, and that's the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I got here, all I had was toxic shame. Toxic shame. just toxic from the inside out. Not just shame, like toxic shame. Like I always say, like we're double fucked. Do you know what I mean? Like even in the book when it talks about this, like when it talks about the jaywalker, right, in the book, like he just like, fucker's nuts. He just keeps walking in front of trucks, breaks his back, and I'm done, and then I want to walk in front of a truck again. Just nuts. But they don't call him insane in the book. They call him strangely insane. The first time I read that, I'm like, that's not good. That's not a good diagnosis for us at all, right? But I remember, like, when I got here, that's all I had. Just toxic shame. I couldn't look anybody in the eye. I would sit in the back of the meeting and I would just mad dog the shit out of you guys, right? And you would read the 10-step promises and I'd be like, why would you read those in a meeting? That's rude. You know what I mean? It's just like we will react sanely and normally. We'll find that this has happened automatically. I'm like, maybe for you, but now you're just bragging. Like, what's going on, And I remember the first time somebody introduced themselves as a grateful heroin addict. Like, I went up to him after the meeting. I was just insane. I didn't get sober until I was 34 years old. So I did heroin for 12 years. It's a long time to do heroin. I really fucked myself up, right? Like, not good, right? I remember I was like sitting in the treatment center for the first time because I'd gone to a lot of detoxes in hospitals, but never treatment, When I was sitting there for the first time, I remember it was the first meeting. I checked in on a Tuesday night, and HA brought a meeting in on a Wednesday. And this woman walked in, and I'm like, I can't believe they would let her come in here. And this guy looks at me, and he's like, you're a client. She's a visitor. I'm like, oh, touche. You know what I mean? That woman became my sponsor, and she was amazing. I was in the bathroom, and I had this moment, I'm like, I should pray. I'm like, but this floor is dirty, And then all of a sudden, I remember one time she told me to pray, and she's like, pray. And I'm like, I don't want to pray in front of anybody. That's weird. And she's like, did you do drugs in front of people? And I'm like, yes. She's like, you can pray in front of people. And I'm like, well, it's just weird. I just feel weird about it. She's like, well, then go in the bathroom and hit your knees. I'm like, I'm not hitting my knees in the bathroom. She's like, did you ever hit your knees in the bathroom for heroin? And I'm like, yes. She's like, you know what I mean? And that's, I can laugh about that because I did, But I'm done. So I was in there and I'm like, hit my knees in that bathroom, and I just said a little prayer, and I'm like, all right, use me to carry a message of hope. Because somebody asked me earlier, they're like, are you nervous? And I'm like, I don't really get nervous like that anymore. I get really excited, And there's nerves in that excitement. And the thing that I'm nervous about is carrying a really, really clear message about the solution of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, because it fucking saved my life. And I want to do that justice. And there's this guy out of LA named Leon Strange, and he's just like, if you ever stop getting nervous sharing from the podium, take your seat, because this is a big deal. This is it. Like, I couldn't stop getting high, right? Until I ended up here. And I didn't end up here by choice, you guys, which is why this is so cool. I was talking to somebody earlier, and I'm like, we were talking about just that fellowship growing up around us, and just watching that happen, and watching more meetings start, and watching more people come in, and watching more people get sober, and more dreams come true, and more families reunite, and just how amazing that is. And I looked at it, I'm like, what's more amazing than that? That we can appreciate it. Because I'm telling you, I couldn't consider anything long enough. You know what I mean? I had to get high. And there's this piece of NA literature called The Triangle of Self. Has anybody in here? Oh, fuck. Ew. The first time I read that, I'm like, oh, the truth hurts really bad, right? Because it talks about this natural evolution of the spirit. right? And how, like, when we're born, it's just I, and it has to be, because I can't communicate with you. So if I'm hungry, I just cry. If I poop my pants, I just cry. Do you know what I mean? If like I need some attention, I just cry. Like, I try to get your attention so you can come and take care of me, because I need that from you, right? And it talks about, like, the normal evolution of the human spirit is to move out of I, right, into we. And how that just kind of like happens organically, right? When you get into school and you make friends, and then you find a sense of purpose and a sense of connection, and your spirit just like grows, right? But alcohol and drugs just stop that process for us, right? It arrests the development of our spirit, and it arrests the development of our emotional connection to ourselves and to the people around us. Like, when I got sober, I was a 14-year-old little shit in a 34-year-old woman's body. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know if I was coming or going. Do you know? And like, and everything was, do you remember when you first, and everything's the end of the world? Do you know what I mean? Like you read how it works, and you read the 12 traditions, and you don't know how to say anonymity, and then you're like, and then you obsess about it for like 48 fucking hours. Do you know what I mean? You're like, I have to go back and redeem myself, and then you practice anonymity, and then, you know what I mean? But it's like, you know what I remember? Like, I remember just like the first time they had me read, I'm just like shaking and sweating. You would think I'm going up and like, you know, accepting an Oscar or something. You know what I mean? Like, just like so self-centered. But that wasn't because I was a bad person. Do you know what I mean? Like, somebody told me once when I was getting sober, because I just, again, that toxic shame. And they're like, Sharmyn, you're not a bad person trying to get good. You're a sick person trying to get well. You know, you have a disease. You're not your disease. Do you know what I mean? Like, they said things that reached me, you know, and I had to be reachable to be teachable. And that's what was so cool. Like, when I finally ended up here, I was surrounded, like, even in treatment, you know what like, you go to, there's a lot of treatment centers out there, and you go in and they're like, we're going to go pet a horse. Do you know what I mean? And we're going to do this like cool shit, and we're going to talk to your inner child, and it's going to be so rad. You know, I walked in and they gave me a big book, and they said, get a sponsor. And I was like, can I have a pill? And they're like, no, you can have a book. You know what I mean? And that's how it went for me in there. Like, I would go up to them and I'd be like, hey, listen, you know, like, I'm homeless and I need to find a place to live. And they're like, well, then you should probably pray about it. And I'm like, why? You know, like, what the fuck is that gonna do? And so I'd be like, whatever. And I'd go pray, and then I still wouldn't have a house. And so I'd come back, and I'd be like, well, I prayed, and I don't have a house. Now I have a resentment because it didn't work. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was just like, what the fuck is happening here? But I was like so desperate, I would just do whatever they told me to do, you know? I'm like, and then I'd cop a resentment. I tell them, you should read page 417. I'm like, what is it? What? Why? And I'd read it, and I'm like, well, that just pisses me off. I don't want to accept you telling me shit that doesn't work. I need something that works, you know? But like, over time, what started to happen, right? Like, I wasn't receiving any immediate gratification for these things that I was doing. Like, I was praying, and I was not like, I didn't have a house. You know what I mean? I was reading 417. I still had a resentment. Like, it didn't happen automatically, you know? And I look back, and I wasn't getting like these immediate results that I wanted, but I wasn't suffering any negative consequences. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't creating any wreckage. And most importantly, and I didn't get this, most importantly, I wasn't doing it my way. Because that was one of the things that they said when I got here. You know, when I was like, can I have a pill? You know, can I have this? Can I pet a horse? You know, I think, you know, I was sexually abused. And then, you know, and they're like, fuck all that. You know, like, get a sponsor and work the steps.
right? Your best ideas get you loaded. Your head is trying to kill you. I have this little voice, right? It's like heroin's destroying my life and I'm miserable because of it and I'm suffering these horrendous consequences. And my head's like, yeah, but if you get high, you could probably figure that out. And I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. Like I would go into detox, right? And I'd be in detox and they'd be like, Sharmyn, you got to go to sober living. And I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't sound like a good idea. You know what I mean? And so I'd send me out of detox and I'd have my list of stuff that I need to do. And it's like, you need to go to 90 and 90. You need to get an IOP. You need to get a sponsor. You need to work the steps. You need to get a home group. You need to get a service commitment. You know, you need to, and I'm like, why? Why would I do any of that stuff? You know what I need? This is what I need. I need a house. I need a car. I need an education. I need a job. I need to get rid of that boyfriend. I need to get a new boyfriend. Maybe a girlfriend. Maybe I'm gay. Maybe that's why I use dope, because I'm just denying my sexuality. You know, this was shit that went through my head, you guys, because I had just completely missed the point. Like, I didn't get it. You guys, I didn't know. And for me, that's the most terrifying thing about this disease. Like, I'm not freaked out that I was a prostitute. I'm not freaked out that I was homeless. I'm not freaked out that I robbed people. Because I had a voice in my head that told me I had to get high to breathe. So I was doing that at any cost. That's why it was so cool that I had a sponsor that knew that and Jedi mind tricked me into doing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, yes, I did all of that for dope. She's like, do it for God. Do it for God. Do it for God. You know what I mean? Because my head tried to convince me that I didn't have this thing. My head tried to convince me on a daily basis that the problem was external, that the problem was a lack of education, that the problem was a lack of a relationship, that the problem was somebody called me fat when I was 5. Do you know what I mean? Like every day that tape would just go over. It would just play over and over in my mind of all this shit that happened to me 20 years ago. Right? And I was convinced that that's why I couldn't keep a needle out of my arm. That's why I prostituted myself for heroin. And you guys, like, even when I would go into the detox center and stand there, I'm like, I need all of this shit so I don't do heroin anymore. And my heart would race and my palms would sweat and my head would freak out and be like, fuck, I need a drink just to figure out how to get sober. Oh, and you know what I would do? I would get high to figure out how to get sober. Do you know what that's called? Strangely insane. That's what that's called. The book calls it strangely. That's insane. And if anybody tried to point that out to me, they were the enemy. Because my disease would go to any length to protect itself. And I just didn't get that until I got here and found you, right? I had to be reachable to be teachable. You reached me. You talked to me in a way that nobody ever had. It was like the backhand of God just poof, every single day, right? And then the arms every single day. You know, like you loved me enough to tell me the truth no matter how bad it hurt. And most importantly, no matter how it made me feel about you. Because there's some ugly truths that I had to look at, and there's some scary truths that I had to look at. And they fully assaulted and confronted my belief system. Because the reality is I was a victim of the delusion that I could wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if I only managed it well. Does that sound familiar? Do you know what I mean? I was a victim of the delusion that it would be different this time. I was a victim of the delusion that heroin was the problem. I was a victim of the delusion that I could drink and smoke weed like a lady. Do you know what I mean? Like I was a victim of all sorts of delusions, right? And I couldn't get out of that on my own. Like, I needed you to help smash that delusion. And, you know, I was recently, a non-addict and an alcoholic called and interviewed me for a thesis that he was writing, right? And, God, this guy was great, just a huge advocate for addicts and alcoholics. Really, really, really wants to know, why and what it's like for us, and really, really wants to champion for new ways of dealing with drug addiction and alcoholism. It's hit him hard as far as his family members go. It not personally and directly, but around him, a lot of people have suffered as a result of drug addiction and alcoholism. And his thesis is called "Hitting Bottom." It's what the fuck is that? I just had to laugh. It was the first time my sponsor, she's like, "Are you done?" I'm like, what kind of stupid question is that? I'm 34 years old. I'm selling myself for heroin. I've been done for a long fucking time. I've been done for a long time, and it's never, ever, ever done with me. And that was my experience. How many of you guys used when you didn't want to? Right? How many of you guys have just tried, and some, I hear so many people say when an addict's lips are moving, they're lying. And it's that's just not my story, you guys. I meant it when I said, I love you and I'm going to quit. I don't want to lose you. I'm not going to hurt you. I'll never do this again. I'm going to get sober this time. I meant that with every fiber of my being. Right? But our human resources as marshaled by the will are insufficient. They failed me utterly. And I was baffled and dumbfounded as to why. I really believe that I'm just a bad, broken person. That's why it was so cool when I got here and you told me I wasn't. I was sick. I was misguided and I was lost. But that there was a way out. That was huge for me. And when this guy was interviewing me, he really wanted, he's just when was that moment? That moment that you made the decision to get sober. And I'm like, I never made that decision. Every time I made the decision to get sober and I set out on a course of action to do that, I got loaded. When I got sober, you guys, it wasn't something I chose. It was something that happened to me. It was the most profound moment of my life. And it was absolutely a gift from God. Grace of the universe, undeserved gift. I don't know why I got it and so many people don't. But it was a gift that was given to me. And it was a gift of surrender and a gift of desperation. And more importantly, it was a gift of no ideas. I woke up one day and I just didn't know what to do. Every day I woke up and I'm like, well, I need to do this and I need to do this, and then I'll make a plan of action and I'll make an outline and I'll have some bullet points, and then this is my plan to get sober, and this is my recovery plan, and I'm going to do this, and then but I need to get high to figure out how to pull it off. You know what I mean? Every fucking time. Every time. And one day I woke up and there just wasn't anything. There was just no more ideas. And there was this overwhelming panic and fear of not getting sober. And that was a first for me, because the only thing that I ever panicked about was running out. The only thing that I was ever afraid of was not having any. So it was this beautiful, perfect storm of no idea and overwhelming fear of not getting sober. And it produced this willingness to just say, help me, right? Just help me. And the minute I said that, just help me, period. Not help me get to the methadone clinic, not help me with $20, not help me with the ride to Sunny Slope. And these are, if from Phoenix, yeah. I don't know, what's the Sunny Slope here? Yeah, whatever, yeah. Give me a ride down there. I'm just gonna go see a friend for a minute. Do you know what I mean? But like that shit, like me asking for help always had conditions. Do you know what I mean? Like the help always had to come the way I wanted it to. I was never willing to take your suggestion. I just wasn't willing. So for me, waking up with that willingness is an absolute miracle and a gift, right? But you guys, like when I ended up in detox that time, like it really wasn't like, I'm going to get sober and I'm going to do it this time. It was like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to do. Like, what is happening to my life? Like, who am I? Like, what is this? How did this happen? You know, when I was so stuck on that, I was just so stuck, like on that, like how? Like, what? Like, I don't know. That the universe just started moving me. Right? My dealer took me to detox. My dealer took me to detox, and you know what he said? I hope I never see you again. Like, it was bad, you guys. I had a brain disease from smoking heroin. At 33 years old, I was in a nursing home in a diaper in a wheelchair. And when I got out, I got high. And you know why? Because my head told me I needed to get high to figure out my next move. That's terrifying. You know, when my mom had cancer, her head told her to fight for her life. I watch people get sick and their heads tell them to fight for their lives. Heroin is killing us and our head tells us to get more. That is terrifying to me. So I just started being moved, you know? And everywhere I was moved, everywhere the universe put me, it was the same thing. Please help me. Tell me what to do. Tell me where to go. Please help me. Tell me what to do. Tell me where to go. Because by this time, there wasn't a lot left for them to say or do for me. It was like, well, Sharmyn, you can't stay here. We don't have a bed for you. We save the beds for people who are willing. And I'm like, okay, well, just tell me where to go and give me a ride, you know? And they take me to the next place and the same thing. They take me to the next place. It's like, just tell me where to go and what to do. And they're like, we're going to tell you to go to sober living. You've never been willing to go. Give me a ride and I'll go. You know, it was just like that. And you guys, like, that wasn't me. And that's why what I was trying to convey to this guy, because he just wanted that moment that I made that decision. But there was never a decision made, right? There was just a surrender and this gift of grace. And then I just started being moved from place to place to place until I ended up in the Mecca of recovery in Phoenix, Arizona. And like God just showed up everywhere, in a book, in a meeting, in a prayer, in a group. My counselor at my treatment center was Paul Fisher, who started HA. That was my, like, what's that? And he talked to me in a way that nobody ever had. And I heard him. I remember one time I went into his office and I was like, the cook's doing it wrong, the program manager's doing it wrong, my sponsor's doing it wrong, fuck this place, I'm the only one that's serious, everybody's having sex, nah, 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 nah. And he's just like, well, our hour's up. And I'm walking out, he's like, hey, Sharmyn, do you think next time we can talk about the problem? And I'm like, well, what were we doing? I was talking about the problem. He's like, you think maybe next time we can talk about you? And I slammed the door. I was like, fuck that guy, I'm never going to talk to him again. You know what I mean? And like 2 days later, I walked in the office, and I had all these things I was going to say, and I was just going to murder him with my words, and I was going to show him, and who does he think he is? And I just walked in, and I looked at him, and I started crying. And I'm like, what did you mean? What did you mean by that? And he's just like, Sharmyn, he's like, heroin's not the problem. The problem isn't outside of you. The problem is not external. The problem is you. The problem is your perspective. The problem is your belief system. The problem is your attitude. You know, it's that whole thing that I do not see the world as it is. I see it as I am. And I was absolutely stuck in my victim posture. I was convinced that my unhappiness was at your hands. I was convinced that you were the reason that I used. I was just so thoroughly convinced that if I could just manage this well, then I would be okay. He said, you are going to die trying to make the world look the way you want it to. I said, tell me what to do. And he's like, get a sponsor and work these steps. Do everything that we tell you to do. Everything. Don't question it. Just do it. We're not going to tell you to do anything that we wouldn't do or haven't done. Well, maybe we might just to fuck with you. But you know, you got to learn not to take yourself so seriously. And they did that shit. They so did that shit all the time. He's like, and when you get through these steps, you get a sponsee and you get a service commitment and you get an H&I commitment. And you carry this message and you give it away to the people who need it the way it was given to you. He's like, and if you want to get high, I will give you $20 to get high. And every time I see him, I talked to him on his birthday a few months ago. You need that $20? I'm like, not yet. Not yet. Not today. Today I'm going to stay. Today I'm going to stay. Because I've been given a life beyond my wildest dreams, and I remember the first time I heard that. I remember I was in a meeting, and I heard somebody at the podium say that they've been given a life beyond their wildest dreams, and that their worst day sober was better than their best day loaded. And I looked at my friend, and I'm like, they're not doing it right. Like, that's just the dumbest shit I've ever heard. And I went back to my counselor, Paul, and I told him about it. And he's like, tell you what. He goes, I want you to write down your dreams and your goals and your aspirations. And then I want you to bring them into me and we'll talk about it. I'm like, okay. And so I did it. And when I walked in, my head was low and my eyes were at the ground. And he's like, what'd you find? And I'm like, oh, heroin took it all. Because when I was a kid, you know, I wanted to be a prima ballerina, a gymnast, a scientist, a space cadet. You know, as I got a little older, you know, I wanted to be on MTV, right? I wanted to be a Prince girl back dance. You know, I wanted to be a cheerleader. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wanted to just be all these things, you know, and then I want to be like Sid and Nancy. I want to be Nancy. You know, Bonnie and Clyde, right? Because the lifestyle had started to take hold, right? And then I just wanted to be like William Burroughs' gopher, because I heard like his gopher just went and got him heroin and like ink for his typewriter and shit. I'm like, he'd chip me off some and I could just hang out with Burroughs and just talk shit all day. Like, how badass would that be? You know? Like, and then it was like, I just want mountains of cocaine and sea of whiskey and never-ending supply of heroin. Right? And then my last, like, I just want to be a high-class call girl in Vegas. Because they do not have to put up with the shit that I have to put up with. It took it all. It hijacked. That was my dream at the end. I remember when that happened. I was sitting at a bus stop. I was dope sick. I was trying to get a date. And this guy looks at me and I'm like, yes. And I just kind of posture up. And he walks up and he reaches in his pocket and I'm like, you want a date? And he pulls something out and he throws it at me. He's like, get something to eat. And I stood up and I'm like, what's wrong? What the fuck is wrong with you? I start yelling at him, like my veins are bulging out of my neck. My eyes are popping out of my hair's falling out. My teeth, these aren't my teeth. My teeth were out. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like yelling and I'm sweating, and it's like it's summer. It's always summer there. It's always summer. Always. Somebody said our Uber's like, there's 2 seasons there, summer and not summer. And I'm like, no, it's always summer. And I was just, but like, and what's so crazy about that moment is I really thought he was the one with the problem. I thought he was the one with the problem. I'm not freaked out that I was on that bus stop. I'm freaked out that I thought that was a good idea. I'm not freaked out that I was doing that. I'm freaked out that my dream was to be doing it someplace else. I'm not freaked out by the things that I did. I'm freaked out by the thinking behind it. I'm freaked out that I have a disease that centers in my mind that wants to convince me on a daily basis that I don't have it, and wants to convince me that the problem is not inside of me, that the problem is outside of me, and wants to convince me that I should get busy trying to fix it so everybody can be happy, including myself. So I'm so grateful that I have a solution that works perfectly for this imperfect person, because I fuck this up a lot, you guys. I've not done this perfectly. I've been around for a little over 9 years, and I have made some whopping mistakes. But that's the beautiful thing, is this solution isn't designed, right, to like make life perfect. It's designed to help me survive my imperfections. I didn't get sober not to live life and not to experience life, not to experience discomfort. I got sober so I can do those things. Getting sober is about getting back into life. And getting sober has given me a purpose again. Like when I was a kid, I did sit-ins, organized sit-ins against Gillette because they tested on bunnies and little thumpers. And I'm like, that's so fucked. And then I go home and use a Gillette product. You know what I mean? It's just insane, right? Like my human resources is marshaled by the will. Like I would want to do good things, but then I would experience discomfort and I'd be like, no, I got to go back over here. What I know today is I will die inside my comfort zone. My life begins inside my discomfort zone. And my God, the universe is always showing up in so many ways to help me live my life. You know what I mean? So many ways. It's so cool that we have this solution that we can implement on a daily basis. We may not always be like in front of another addict, but we can always practice these principles in all of our affairs. Like taking the stuff that we get in here out there and bringing it into our community connects us to the world around us, gives us meaning and gives us purpose. Howard P. from Phoenix, one of our patriarchs, like 50 years sober, calls it the golden thread. And I'll leave you with this. He's like, the definition of love is not standing in front of another person, looking in their eyes and falling in love. The definition of love is standing next to that person and falling in love with the world. And you have absolutely helped me fall in love with the world, so thank you so very much.